Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 100 Pounder meeting of Overeaters Anonymous. Today it is the 15th of October 2025, and I'm absolutely delighted today to welcome the lovely Hannah C. Hannah came to OA in July 2018. She was originally from Hampshire in the south of England, but she is now in London. So, Hannah, we are going to let you share your experience, strengths, and hope. Take it away, my love.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm a compulsive overeater. Thank you so much for letting me be here today. Um, so I thought I'd start with a couple of numbers because I always find that's easy to help and to help me start. So as Rita mentioned, I came into OA in July 2018. Um, my abstinent date is the 12th of the 12th, so 12th of December in 2018, and I have maintained my abstinence ever since. So I'm nearly at 7 years now. And actually, if we can share my photo that I provided, that'd be great. And I am absolutely qualified to speak in a 100 pounder meeting. During my time in recovery, I have lost 80 kilos, which is about 175 pounds, which I think is about 12 stone, 8 pounds. I had to do the research on that before I joined the meeting. Um, and yeah, I don't have many photos of me actually from previously. That photo there on the left is from a hen do that I was actually taking a couple of months into recovery. That's after I'd lost a little bit of weight actually. Um, and I remember that hen weekend, and I remember in the early days how difficult it was still. So anyone who is still in those early days, do keep coming back. Thanks, Rita, for sharing that. Um, so I thought I'd just quickly share a little bit about what my life was like before OA. Because I know lots of people when I came into it, I heard lots of people talking about going on all these diets and like losing lots of weight and putting it weight back on and the yo-yoing. And I actually didn't really relate to that. That wasn't my story. I was a chubby kid that became a kind of fat teenager that became a very overweight woman in her early 20s who was then severely obese by the time I came into OA. My weight just always went up and up. I never had a moment of weight loss before OA. That's just not my story. I could never do it, you know. Um, I remember the sort of the family story was that when I was born, the day I was born, and they sort of put me in the kind of little hospital crib bassinet, I started sucking on two of my fingers. So from literally day one, I was soothing myself orally. I sucked my thumb throughout my childhood. I turned to food for ease and comfort from day one, as far as I'm aware. And I, I didn't have a particularly traumatic childhood, I would say. I do come from what I would consider to be a dynasty of compulsive overeaters. This is a disease that absolutely runs through my family tree, root and branch. Um, I was bullied quite a lot at school. I'm quite tall. I was a chubby kid. I was an easy target. My mom and dad did the best they could to raise me. I look back now and think that I don't think they had quite the emotional skills to raise a compulsive overeater kid who was struggling. Um, my mum was in the grips of bulimia for a really long time, and I remember, going to a well-known department store in the UK, Marks and Spencer's, to buy my school uniform. And I remember we couldn't find a skirt that fit me in the children's section because I was too big. And I remember my mum trying to squeeze like a skirt on me and getting really angry with it and then go, oh, for goodness sake, and storming off and having to go to the adult section to find a skirt. And I just remember being horrifically ashamed, just awfully ashamed that, oh, my body's not right. Look, I don't fit in these clothes. These are the clothes I should be. There was a hood there. I should be like this. And I wasn't that. And people were mad at me. My mum was mad at me because I didn't fit in. And, my dad, I don't think he's very bright, but I don't think he has quite the emotional intelligence I needed at that age. He would say things like, "You'd be so pretty if you lost weight." And I think in his mind that was supposed to be inspiring or motivating. And it just wasn't for 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old me. And it sort of started that very obvious vicious cycle that I think we all know, that the food being the problem and at the same time the solution. And the big book's very clear that this is a progressive illness that gets worse, not better. And I think for me, it was just slowly eating more and more and behaviors getting stranger and stranger. And for a really long time, I did not think I had a problem with food. I thought I had a problem with my weight. It took me a really long time to realize that this was a food thing. And I think it took the behaviors around food becoming so strange and so bizarre and so out of whack with all other areas of my life. I couldn't lie them away anymore. Like I couldn't come up with an excuse anymore. Like these behaviors just didn't make sense. Like I I remember, I used to commute from London back to Hampshire where my family were, and I would deliberately ask them not to pick me up from the train station. And the reason I did that was because I was able to walk past a fish and chip shop, eat a whole portion of chips. I knew where all of the bins were on the route home so I could stash the evidence. Then I'd go home and have a whole meal. I thought nothing of that. Like that didn't even cross my mind as a weird thing until years into recovery, that I was lying and sneaking food to that extent. Like it was just a second nature. It just kind of became a thing. Like I did. And, I would sort of go into supermarkets on my lunch break and pick up a bag of something and be like, oh, I'll share these with the office. That was the lie I tell myself. I'm going to share these with everyone else. Put them in my basket. I knew damn well I wasn't sharing a thing that I had just bought. I was going to bring them back to my desk and I was going to try and make it look like I was eating the same one cookie or the same one biscuit. And actually, I was eating the whole pack of them. Like it was just secrets and lies on top of secrets and lies. And it was only when I was doing behaviors that were so self-injurious, again, to use big book language, that I can't explain it. Like I can't explain eating 2 pizzas so large that I am in physical pain and discomfort, that I wake up with my mouth dry from all the salt. And, it doesn't make sense to order a takeaway, it arrive late, cold, and soggy. I dislike all of it and I still eat the whole lot. Like that doesn't make sense. And I'm a relatively smart person. Like I have a law degree. I used to work in politics. Like I'm not stupid. I know that. But there was no other area of my life where I was doing this. And it took it getting that bad for me to, and I think for me, one of the big clinches was I stole food off a stranger's plate in a restaurant. And it wasn't even nice. I just did it. And I was waiting for my binge food, and it just didn't make sense. I couldn't explain that away. What lie could I tell myself to convince myself that that is normal behavior? Like it's just not. And it was like, oh, I have a food problem where my weight is the symptom. My weight is the side effect. I can't diet my way out of this. There's no weight loss tool that is going to fix a food problem. And I'd known about OA because my mum had gone to OA many years previously. She'd not stayed in OA, but I kind of knew it was in the periphery. I was kind of aware of it. And I was kind of had this feeling of like I was about to turn 29 and I thought I can't face the idea of going into my 30s like this. I can't do it. And so I went to my first OA meeting in Clapham in London. It is still my home group today. And I did the classic of like checking the OA website every week to see if it was still there. And annoyingly, it was every week, still there, same time. Um, so I finally kind of plucked up the courage. And I actually don't really remember much of that first meeting, other than I cried the whole meeting. I could, we went round in a circle and all said our name. And I couldn't say I was a compulsive overeater. I just about choked at "Hi, I'm Hannah." And I just remember feeling like, oh, this is it. This is it. I don't remember what was said. I don't remember what I thought, but I just remember the feeling of this is it. And actually, I now know that that feeling of overwhelming tears and not really knowing why or not really what's going on, that is my higher power. That feeling, that just, oh, I belong here. This is where I need to be. And so I kept coming back. I actually remember a few days later, the newcomer greeter at that meeting called me while I was in the underground. I was in the tube and left a voicemail. And I came out and I was going into a meeting at work. And I thought, oh, I've got this unknown number and this missed call. And it was a stranger who didn't know me. I hadn't shared any details about myself. I just sat in that meeting and cried. And she just said, hey, I'm calling to see if you're okay. And just to let you know that I'm thinking of you. And it was an act of kindness that floored me. I could not fathom that someone just wanted to see if I was okay, who didn't know me. They had no, they had no vested interest in me. They knew nothing about me. And I don't, the world doesn't treat big people very nicely, is the short answer to that. And to come and find kindness of that level when I was feeling so broken was unbelievable. And it was, I think, a big part of why I kept coming back, reaching out to me being that newcomer and someone reaching out to me, just leaving a voicemail. I didn't even call them back. I didn't even call them back. I was too scared to. But just knowing that someone cared enough to give me a call was incredible. So
That's 10.
thank you, acknowledged. And so yeah, so I came into OA and what I did was I think the classic of I did everything I could other than get a sponsor. So I went to meetings, I did phone calls, I went to a Region 9 convention, I went to a weekend retreat, you name it, I did it. I did not get a sponsor because I knew if I got sponsored, that was like real. I was actually going to have to do work. That was the real stuff. And that was terrifying. Um, but after a few months, there is still debate, by the way, between me and my sponsor as to who reached out to who. I maintain she reached out to me. She says she would never do that, but I maintain she reached out to me and said, I'm available to sponsor you. And, she had been 12 stepping me for sure while I was in the program. I remember she had called me after a binge on one day because I don't, when I first came in, I didn't put down the food. So I had a head full of program and a belly full of binge food, and that was awful. My food got worse before it got better. Absolutely. But I started working with a sponsor and she is the same sponsor I have today, and one day at a time. I think actually it might even be today because I count by days. I am 2,500 days abstinent because I do this one day at a time. There is absolutely no other way to work this program other than one day at a time. It is a daily reprieve contingent on daily action, 100%. Um, so when I worked the program, I worked it relatively slowly, I think, in comparison to some other people. But I think for me, that was needed. Um, I spent quite a long time in steps one, two, and three, well, one and two in particular. And it was absolutely the foundation and is still the foundation of where I build the house of my recovery. And in step one, I really kind of understood that I have different types of binging for me. So there is this idea around I could be having a really great day. Everything's going Hannah's way, everything's wonderful. And then I eat a certain substance and I can't stop. I am nuts. I just kind of go loop de loop. A food plan can help me with that. The issue is on the other days where I'm feeling terrible. I am restless, irritable, discontent, and I need ease and comfort. On those days, I don't care what the food is. I will binge on anything. I've binged on salads, I've binged on cherries, I've binged on stir fries. I don't care. I will binge on anything. There is not a food plan in the world that is going to save me from those days. Those days, I absolutely need the steps. So to really understand that there is no possible way a food plan on its own can fix anything was really helpful. And my food plan is not my abstinence. They are two different things. My food plan is a tool, and a tool is there to help me work the steps. That is it. The tools, all of these tools, the meetings, my sponsor, all of it, fantastic, essential. I need them, I use them. They are not replacements for the steps. I need to work the steps in order to maintain my recovery. But one of the other things I just wanted to really, I picked it out from the big book because it was such a, oh my gosh moment in my step one. And it's from There Is a Solution, page 22. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one compulsive bite means another debacle with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it that he takes that one bite? Why can't he stay on the wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters? Perhaps there never will be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the compulsive overeater reacts differently from normal people. We're not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We cannot answer the riddle. And that idea of the why, like that was the main thing. It's like, I'm smart. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But then the big book goes on. We know that while the compulsive overeater keeps away from food, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We are equally positive that once he takes any compulsive bite, whatever, into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any compulsive overeater will abundantly confirm this. The why is irrelevant. That's what I get from that bit. The why is totally and utterly irrelevant. What is true is that when I take a bite, I respond accordingly. Why I take that bite means nothing. The fact is, I do, and the solution is to not take the bite. And to kind of really get that into my head took a while because I really wanted an answer why. And actually, just there isn't one. There isn't a why. And to kind of sit and acknowledge that there is no why actually felt quite freeing because it felt like I was a dog chasing my tail, trying to understand why I was the way I was. Is it because of what my mum used to do? Because of what my dad used to do? Is it genetic? Is it this? Doesn't matter. Solutions are 12 steps either way, isn't it? So may as well let it go. Um, and then in terms of my step two, my big aha moment, I was not raised in a religious household, and my dad was raised Christian and sort of Catholic, and sort of found science at 18 and was very clear that me and my brother were going to grow up in a home of science with no religion. So I would call him perhaps a sort of Richard Dawkins atheist, that religion is a bad thing. Stupid people are religious, you know. And so I grew up in that kind of home. And so this idea of finding a spiritual thing, like I was too in my head with it. And I had this real beautiful aha moment, and it was a lifeline reading in a meeting. And it was the idea, so it talked about the idea of not actually feeling your feelings, but thinking your feelings. And I was sort of like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And then it goes on to say that God has to be felt, not thought. And that was just like slap in the face, like, oh my gosh, I have to feel God. God is not something I can think. I can't define it. I can't describe it. I can't explain it. That is all language of the mind. That is all in my head. I need to feel God. God is a feeling. It is a sensation. The closest I can describe it to me is it's like a magnet or a compass. I feel pulled in a direction. Yes, no, hot, cold, don't do that. You know, it feels like a pull. And I know when I'm on my higher power's will, when I am connected to my body. If I am stuffing food in my mouth and I am not abstinent, I cannot be connected to my body. So it's like no wonder I couldn't find God when I was in the food. I was in denial about my body. I had no connection. My body was just this thing I inhabited and walked around in. I had to put the food down to connect with my body to feel God. Because all the while I was looking for God in my head, all I was finding was my illness. Um, so to really kind of let go of that was absolutely crucial for me in my step two. And often I have to remind myself of that now. And then in terms of step three, I remember doing my step three in person with my sponsor, and I was really expecting this like moment with like clouds parting, ray of sunshine, everything's going to be wonderful from now on. And I did not have that, and I was really disappointed. And my sponsor waited until after I had done my step three in person with her to say, "You now do this every day. This is now part of your routine every morning. You do a step three prep. The step three is a process, and it is a process that we have to repeat because you will take your will back." And I'm like, gotcha. And actually, it is in the repetition of step three that step three has come to mean what it means to me today, that I have to surrender my will. And I know, and now the more I surrender, the more I know when I'm not surrendering. Like, the more I know, like, I did not need to do that. That was not all that helpful. That was actually not aligned with my higher powers will for me at all. But I did it because I was feeling like it. And hey, I sometimes still do that. I'm not perfect. So to actually do the repetition of step three is how that has cemented to me that I need to continue turning my life and my will over. And I also just want to quickly touch on step 12. You know, I've jumped all of them, but I'm aware I've only got half an hour. And I've only got 10 minutes. But step 12 for me, I just want to say I'm quite passionate about it. I do give service. I've given service at Intergroup, at National Service Board. I do sponsor. I'm I'm very clear that this is a 12-step program, not an 11-step program with a bonus 12-step. This is part of my recovery. I get better through my service to others. And there is nothing as amazing as having one of my sponsees call me asking for advice with one of her sponsees. And I can see this chain developing, and it's just beautiful to see recovery in action. Um, but I wanted to talk in particular, I'm aware this is a £100 meeting, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about body in my last few moments. Um, when I first started losing weight in recovery, I hated it. I hated it. It was everything I wanted, and then I got it, and I hated it because all of a sudden people were commenting. I was looked at, I was seen, and you don't get to be the way I was and enjoy people looking at your body. So, and it took a long time for me to get to the weight that I am now. And people like to comment and people like to see and like, oh, haven't you lost weight? Don't you look good? What's your secret? How have you done it? Da, da, da. And it was just awful. I felt like I was, under a magnifying glass, and it was pressure. And I had to go into clothes shops, and I was still buying clothes in the plus size section, but it just all felt weird. And I hated it. I hated the whole process. And I had to get comfortable with it, with change, and recognize that my body is not a static thing. And I had this real identity that my body was just fat. It was a label, and it was a label I'd given my body for a really, really long time. And all of a sudden, I couldn't give my body one label anymore. And what I really had to do was accept my body for today, knowing that it could very well be different tomorrow. In fact, it probably is going to be different tomorrow. I'm going to grow old. I'm going to get sick. I've certainly got sick in recovery, and it's going to do its own thing. And I just actually only have to accept it today. And one of the gifts that my higher power has given me recently, one of the things that I was terrified of when I came to the program was the idea of having loose skin. I was like, oh my God, if I lose all that weight, I'm just going to look worse. I'm going to look even worse. What would be the point of losing weight? So actually, from the start of my recovery, I started putting money away into a little fund that was my abdominoplasty loose skin removal surgery fund. And as I lost the weight, yeah, I got a whole load of loose skin. And actually, in the process of accepting my body every day, it was less scary, and it was kind of okay, and it was all right. And then what happened was I got to a certain point and I didn't know how much of my body was loose skin and how much was excess weight. It was sort of a bit odd and a bit uncomfortable. My sponsor said, well, you can always go to your doctor. And long story short, I went to my doctor, and my doctor referred me to have an abdominoplasty on the NHS. And I had it for free. And I had my loose skin removed December last year. And by the grace of God, that pot of money then went into my flat fund, which is now the flat I'm living in instead. But I had the surgery in December, and so I had a what's called a fleur de lis for those who've done the research. I'm guessing there's a couple of people in here who's done the research on it. So I had an incision that goes all the way from hip to hip, all the way across, and also a vertical line all the way up the top. That's how much. I had 3.5 kilos of skin removed. So it's quite a lot. And it was quite a major surgery. And I had some minor complications after my recovery. My incision kind of opened and closed a few times, quite a few times. And at first, everything was kind of fine. It was all kind of good. And then we got to a point where I realized that, oh, I'm not sick anymore. My incision's definitely healed. Everything's kind of all sorted. I'm not magically better. It's not magically fixed everything. I'm 3.5 kilos less of skin, and I'm still a compulsive overeater. And actually, all that I did was go, oh, maybe I should get my thighs done. Oh, maybe I should get my boobs done. Oh, I've still got loose skin on my arms. And that eye, that little wandering eye that wanted to look all over my body and criticize it, came back with a vengeance. And actually, I've been on a real journey this year of a body obsession I never had before. I was in denial with my body before. Like I just couldn't cope. I never looked in mirrors. I didn't get involved. I bought clothes that were cut a certain style so I could buy a couple of sizes smaller because I didn't want to be in denial. I wanted to be in denial about the actual size I was. So to now suddenly have a body that looked very different very quickly and in some ways was the body I had imagined for years and years. And it didn't magically fix anything. And it was really, it was been a real journey. It's been a real kind of mixed blessing, I'll be honest. I think there was a little part of me that kind of hoped it would just kind of fix everything, that I'd suddenly have this magical confidence and I'd suddenly have all of this magical resources. And it's not done that. And it's just reminded me like what my body is. It is my home. It is where I live. And it is nothing more than that. It is the least interesting thing about me. I am far more than my body. And yes, it looks different. I'm still me. And it's like it's been a gift, absolutely. And there are absolutely benefits. Like, hey, my first thought was like, oh my gosh, I can buy trousers that fit me. And I was like, nope, turns out trousers still aren't cut for my body. Hey, like I had all these expectations on what it was going to do, and it's not kind of done that. And I think my higher power gave this to me as a real kind of lesson to really surrender my body and really let it go and go back to accepting it one day at a time. And the other thing that's happened to me in recovery is I was diagnosed with early onset menopause. So I am now 35, 35, no, 36. I have to do the maths. And I don't have children. I will almost definitely not have children that are biologically mine now. And I'm on HRT. And that, for anyone who's on HRT, knows it can know it's a bit of a journey to get it right, to get balance and to get it sorted. And, I've just had to have a coil fitted and I'm now dealing with bloating. I never had to experience bloating before. What was that? I was just, I never noticed a change like in bloat and not bloat, and I just have to now live in the rhythm and cycle of my body and to really go, sometimes it feels like my body's fighting against me. And then I have to remember, no, we're on the same side. This is not a war with my body. When I'm not fighting my body anymore, we are on the same side. And actually, if my body is struggling, if I am hormonal, if I am bloated, if I'm sore, if whatever is going on, it's like, lay down the weapons. Like, I don't need to fight anymore. Like, this is actually now the time for me to look after myself and to go, okay, well, now I adapt and I just accept it as it is. And one of the big things that has shifted for me this year in this journey has been had to be a shift in my concept of a higher power, because I really felt my higher power was quite neutral, and maybe my higher power was there to keep me safe. But actually, that definition doesn't really work for me anymore. And actually, what I'm realizing is that my higher power doesn't just want me to be okay. My higher power wants me to thrive. My higher power wants me to do amazing things. My higher power wants great, wonderful, bigger stuff than I can comprehend for me. Not just be okay, not just be alive, but do awesome things. And actually, my body has to be a tool that I use to go and do awesome things. My body is not the awesome thing. It's a body. And we've all got them. And mine is never going to look like a Victoria's Secret model. And that is absolutely a-okay. It's just going to be a tool for me to then go and do my higher powers well. And for that, my body is absolutely perfect. My body perfectly gives me what I need to do my higher powers well. It does not give me what I need to be on the front cover of Vogue, but that is not my higher powers will for me. So that is okay. Um, and so, yeah, so to just keep surrendering and keep accepting and keep my body in the day, and to recognize that this is bigger than me. My higher power is bigger than me. All of this story, all of this journey that all of us have to go on is bigger than all of us. Um, so yeah, so I think I'm probably roughly at time, and I don't think I've got anything more to say. So I will leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well, thank you, Hannah. What a message of depth and weight. And I'm just going to read a little paragraph out after what you spoke about. It says it's on page XXIX, the doctor's opinion. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol or food. The only effect necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change.